Welcome to Quilting on the Side, the podcast for quilters who are building a business while juggling real life.
I'm Tori from Hey Tori, a quilter, past pattern designer and teacher, and now a digital marketing coach for quilting entrepreneurs.
And I'm Andi from True Blue Quilts, long arm quilter, pattern designer, and quilting instructor.
Between the two of us, we've taught workshops, launched programs, joined summits, and stayed up way too late trying to finish one more quilt binding.
On this show, we're sharing what's worked and what hasn't in our interviews from incredible guests, everyone from quilting solo business owners to CEOs.
So if you're running a quilting or creative business or dreaming about starting one, you'll find real talk, honest strategies, and a whole lot of support here.
So grab your notebook, grab your pen, and let's dive into another episode of Quilting on the Side. And we're back. It's so good to be here for season 5. How have you been, Tori?
I've been doing pretty good. How are you, Andi?
I'm doing very well. And season 5, that's always a big number when you get to that body of work, in whether it's with your pattern business, your long arm business. When you have 5 seasons or 5 years under your belt, it feels like a real thing. So how are you feeling? Are people recognizing you as the voice of Quilting on the Side?
They are. Like when I went to H&H, I had more people recognize me than I ever have ever. And some people are like, oh, I know you from the podcast. Some people recognize me from YouTube. So I think they're listening to the podcast on YouTube, and things like that. So it's been interesting. What about you, Andi?
Yeah, it's been fun to have people say that they've listened to the podcast, and I'm glad that we both are, refuse to give up. We're going to keep showing up and keep putting our knowledge and our stories out there. So, glad to have you along for this journey. And you mentioned being at H&H, and that's where we want to pick right up. That event happens in the spring, so it's been a few months. So you've had some time to sit with that experience. Tell us about it.
H&H was really good this year. I had a much more targeted goal than I did before, where last time was more like I wanted to see what it was all about. I wanted to meet different people. I wanted to show a few people my book that was in progress at the time, and now it's been published. When this episode comes out, it'll be almost a year it's been published. But this year I was much more focused on getting the word about my book out, actually talking to people. I had a shelf, half a shelf in the book pavilion, so my book had its own little display this time around, so that was really cool. And it was great. I learned a lot. I went to a lot of trends shops. I actually paid for the workshop pass this time, or the classes pass. I forget exactly what it was called. But I was able to go to quite a few classes and a few panels. And of course, I went to all the keynotes because I love their keynotes that they do. I think they're really interesting. And I even got to see a preview of Quilters, the Netflix special that came out a few months ago. So that was really, really cool. And I got to see some of the quilts that the people in the documentary actually made. They had them there at H&H. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was such a big event for the industry to have that documentary come out. There was a lot of buzz about it. So definitely for our audience, let us know what your reactions were to that documentary. We can certainly talk about that in another episode, in terms of charity efforts. Some of the things I noticed around that documentary were that men in quilting always get more attention, and it's been kind of a women's crush. So we've got that whole gender divide going on. That people have opinions about. Obviously the charity, the rehabilitation, since it was an effort in a prison, and some of those big societal issues were really interesting too. But yeah, I'm glad, for anybody to get exposed to quilting is a good thing. So that must have been really, really neat to see some of that in person. But you mentioned going to trend talks and panel discussions. So what are some of the trends that they were forecasting?
Well, what was interesting is I learned how to notice trends, which was cool because I never really there's a little fly. It's like a little gnat thing. Okay, anyway, we what was I saying? Trends. So what was cool was one of the presenters had trends from different experts. So like the Pantone colors of the year, she showed how Pantone had its own trends, or I don't know if I'm saying that right. Pantone had its own trends. Pinterest had its own trends. Etsy had its own trends that it was forecasting. And she was very good at pulling out colors for the craft industry, yarn, because H&H is a big yarn and fabric industry show. So you've got both yarn and quilting together with like beading and stuff. Like they had a lot of handcrafts this year, a little bit more I think than last year, and it was a much larger show overall. So it was really interesting to see not only the quilting and fabric side of stuff, but also the trends going on with the yarn industry, because there is some crossover for our ideal customers. Like our ideal customers are very creative, and a lot of them use a lot of different textiles, not just fabric, in what they create. So it was really cool to see. There was a lot of and going back to color, there's a lot of yellows apparently coming, which I'm not a big fan of yellow, so I was like, oh man, a lot more muted color. As you may remember, Pantone's color of the year was like mocha
Mhm.
mousse. Was it mocha mousse?
Yeah, I
I think it
think
was
that
that
was
one.
it. Everybody called it like the bad pantyhose color.
I know some people loved it and some people didn't, and that's always the reaction I think to a color of the year trend is like some people love it, some people don't. But because that was the color of the year, the colors that went with it are more muted.
Mhm.
So like I saw, and I call it Dusty Rose, but they were calling it something else. But it feels a lot like the 90s. Like
Right? Oh
Dusty
my
Rose seems
gosh.
to be coming back. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
and
pinks, a lot of yellows.
some of those colors remind me of um Little House on the Prairie. But we did see some of that, like the calico things in Target over the last year have just um been kind of funny, but I guess it's kind of that pendulum swinging to the hominess of and the um in I'm thinking independence, but that's not really the word I'm thinking of. Just the do-it-yourself aspect of the American frontier of, pioneers and going out there and just building everything, whether it's your garden or your house, your furniture, all of that kind of ties into that hominess and that calico Little House on the Prairie feel. So
Yeah, no, I recognize that too. And it was a lot of florals. Now that you mentioned that, a lot of floral designs were coming out. A lot of trends in flowers, big flowers, little flowers, striking flowers, muted flowers. There were flowers all over these trend reports. And one one big one that stuck in my brain that I wanted to share with the quilting world was this idea of bed rotting. Have you heard of that?
yeah, I have seen a few things, and it always makes me think of my daughter, whose life, was immensely changed by the pandemic. And, it hit her at such a crucial time because she was a young teen, um, in 2020. And she literally retreated to her room. And I think she spent most of high school, like you said, bed rotting. She just lives from her bed because she has her phone. She can pull her laptop there and get all her work done. And so it was, it's such a different experience. you know, Obviously, my generation, we sat up. I had a desk in my room and I would sit at my desk. She has a desk in her room also, but it's usually piled with all her stuff, and she's doing her work on her bed. So it just,
Yeah, I had a cross. I had both those experiences too. I had a desk where I did a lot of work, but I also sometimes needed to spread out, and my desk wasn't quite big enough, so I would use my beds. I went back and forth as a team. But bed rotting, if you haven't heard, that's what Andi said. It's kind of living from your bed, more of a relaxed position. It's taking time to actually actively relax. And to go along with that, sleep trends have been big, like how to get better sleep. And I think that we can use both of those within our quilting world because quilts go on beds. Quilts are
Yeah.
comfy. Quilts are perfect for the sleep trend, for the bed rotting, or like even, especially if you do any hand quilting or hand piecing, sitting in bed, bed rotting and hand piecing to like relax could be great for marketing. So like little things like that were coming up that I was like, "Ooh, let me write this down. Let me write this down." So I had a lot of fun learning about trends and kind of starting to understand where they pull these trends from. And she even had like trends that were, and I've got pictures of all this, so maybe we can put this on Patreon so that everybody can see. But she's got projection trends for the next 3 years. Like she knows what the color of the years are going to be for the next 3 years. So like sharing that information ahead of time could get you ready for quilt patterns and quilt examples and projects and things like that. Speaking of projects, that is another trend that is going on right now. We spoke to a lot of book publishers and we spoke to a lot of to people in general in the business. And a lot of them see this swing where we go, and this happens every few years where we swing back and forth between larger projects and smaller projects. And right now we're swinging towards smaller projects. So if you're thinking, what can I release next year? Should I go with a quilt along or should I do something smaller? It may be good to go with the smaller project idea. And then when we start to swing the other way, when people are looking for more of a longer term project, you can bring out that longer quilt idea.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That is interesting to notice and to go back to over the years and kind of think about when when the emphasis has been on small, quick items. But I think sometimes those smaller projects always fit in the fall and the holiday season, especially because everybody needs those quick gifts, you know, oh no, I waited till the last minute, so I have to get something out. Um, but yeah, it's that is interesting that um, we're and I think it follows society in a way that, you know, there has been a lot of um, push, especially with the tension between remote work and in office. And, you know, there's a push to get back in the office, which means you don't have as much time at home to get things done. So those small short-term projects could fit that niche.
Hey, that reminds me, I have a little bit of an announcement. So, speaking of being pushed back into the office, I hit a wall with my career in my full-time job, and I decided to put in my 2 weeks notice and go full-time in my business. And I've been going full-time in my business for the last 2.5, 2.5 months over the summer. So I've
Yeah,
been home with my,
congratulations for taking that leap. So, uh, we've always talked about kind of multiple income streams. So, tell people what your various offers are now that you are independent.
well, right now I am, wait, hold on. That's getting away from our, is that okay to get away from our topic?
Of course, we veer around and take the twists and turns as they appear in our conversation.
Okay, we'll come back to the marketing research because there's more we want to talk about with that. But yeah, I am, so my main focus, and I did this before I put in my 2 weeks notice, was I took a look at what I was offering and what I wanted to, I wanted my business to be. And it all came back to the same thing it has been over the last 2 years, which is marketing. I'm really enjoying doing digital marketing coaching for quilters specifically. And then I've been reaching out to other crafters, but nobody's really stuck yet. But I've been helping mainly quilters. So the DMMC, my Digital Marketing Magic Coaching Program, is the main offer that I have right now. And then everything around it leads people back to the DMMC. So I've got my book right now. As we're recording this, we're doing our book club. So that kicked off last week.
And that's
So
for Workshops Unleashed, if people have not heard yet, by Tori McElwain.
yes, Workshops Unleashed. So it's all about helping you with your courses and with marketing. So launching your course and getting the word out there. And that I'm going to offer them a slight discount to join the DMMC at the end of that. So back to the DMMC, I also have a new offer coming out very soon after this podcast is released, this episode, and it's called the Self-Publishing Incubator. So I very much love to bring people along with me when I learn to do something. As I mentioned, my book, Workshops Unleashed, has been out for almost a year now, and I've been getting a lot of questions about how did you self-publish? So I decided, and this idea was actually an original idea from Carly Porter. I spoke to her um, QuiltCon
Okay.
at QuiltCon, and she just kind of threw this idea out, and I've kind of taken it and ran with it. And I've gotten me a tech editor and a content editor. We've come together and we're creating the self-publishing incubator to help other quilters publish their books. So that's the next thing we're doing. And that's leading back to the DMMC. After that, they're going to get help launching their book. And then if they would like long-term help with marketing, they can join the DMMC or they can go on and do whatever they want to do. So it's always an option for them at the end of these things. And I
Is
also,
wonderful.
the last thing I have is the SEO. So the SEO, the Creatives Clarity Report, which is my AI tool where I can generate a amazing report for your website. And then I offer, do you need continuous support with this? Or you can take this list and go improve your website. So it's all leading back to one main offer, and that has been growing and it has been able to support what we need it to support. And I've been able to be home with my son who is off for the summer. And that was one of the big pushes for why now. Why did I quit my job right now? Is because he needed care over the summer. And as I've shared before in our podcast, he has high needs and I need to be on call for him constantly. So it's been a transition, but it's been a worthwhile one. And it was
Yeah.
one thing that I had planned for a while, and it was great to take the leap.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to see how uh, you are putting into practice all the things that we have been sharing, in that you've crafted that offer and then you make sure everything ties so that you're not feeling as scattered and thin trying to do it all, because it's all part of the same kind of ecosystem. So thanks for being such a great example for all of us that have been able to be a part of it in a little bit. So, but that does bring us to the back to the market research topic, because you had to look and see what the needs were out there. So, what suggestions do you have for people to get started if they're thinking, I have this new idea, what's the next step?
So first thing you got to look at is your ideal customer. I think so much of marketing goes back to who is your ideal customer and where are they showing up? So who is your ideal customer? Where are they showing up? And how can you meet them there? And that how is really important because you want to be able to communicate with them in the way that you feel most comfortable. So whether that's writing, whether that's with your pictures that you like to take, whether that's with video, or you like to do a mix of things, that is how you want to show up. That is authentic, it's more fun for you, and it's easier for you to communicate, and you'll stay more consistent if you're enjoying it more and all those pieces. But then a step further, so into actually doing research. So market research, it sounds like this big thing, but it can take just a few minutes. And it really is just looking at what people are interested in right now. What's the market interested in? We just talked about trends. So right now trending is a lot of people are interested in flowers. They're interested in these particular colors. They're interested in learning how to sleep better. And maybe a weighted quilt or a fluffy quilt is going to be the thing that helps them get there. And just speaking to those trends can help attract your customer to what you're offering. You can also look at keywords. So going up to a search bar in any app, like any social media app, particularly I would look at Pinterest because that's a great way to search. You can also use ChatGPT and their search, their, what do you call it? The research button is a great way to go as well, because they can also, that AI tool can also search the internet for you, but you can ask key terms. You can just start typing in quilt and see what comes up. Like those keywords that they'll just pop up. They start guessing what you're going to say based off of what was most popular being searched in that moment, so that you can go back and you can look at those keywords. And if I'm teaching about curves, I go up to the search bar and search, how to sew curves, or how to piece a curved something, and see what comes up, see what people are liking, what they're commenting on, what they're sharing. And that could give you a good idea on what you can offer, or how to enhance your offer, or how to pick the words you use in your descriptions, in your social media captions, and then use it. Go and use it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
market research can really be that easy. You can also send out a survey. So you can just ask people. You can go to these industry events like I did with H&H. You can go to a quilt show and start talking to people and noticing what quilts are up in the show, because typically the local area has its own trends. So you can go in and look at that. So there's several ways you can do market research. So Andi, have you ever done market research?
Yeah, I tend to be pretty informal with things because, a lot of us, we do spend a lot of time online. We subscribe to various newsletters, and just taking a second to reflect and say, okay, I'm like you mentioned florals. I've seen, XYZ, or at a local quilt show. Oh my gosh, that's the fifth Judy Niemeyer quilt I have seen, or for a while those curved flying geese were everywhere. So, just taking a moment to reflect on what am I seeing more often, is a good way to think about trends. Like you say, even just you notice things at the grocery store, the aisle of magazines, you start seeing the same things crop up on all the different outlets. So um, just our continual reminder to be reflective on your experience, it will help. And yeah, you don't want to be copying things that you see online, but just being aware, I think, is a way to do it. And then you mentioned seeing what people are responding to on social media with typical, how to sew curves. Maybe there was a video on one of the social platforms where someone was demoing a curved block, and you can scroll through those comments and start to pick up where are those trouble spots, and that gives you an avenue to present your tips and tricks for the similar topic, but obviously it's going to be in your own voice. So really mining those comments and those message boards are a good way to do some research. But it's always good to go to the source, like you said, surveys, reach out to your audience and start those conversations. And this is where I love to participate in live events on YouTube, whether I am the presenter on my own YouTube channel, having a live video and watching what people are talking about in chat, or when I am on some, you know, in the chat area for someone else's live video. It really helps to watch those conversations and see what people are asking about. So really good idea, just to be aware and keep your eyes and ears open.
Definitely. I had one person shared with me that because I asked her how did she come up with her ideas on her new products that were coming out, because she has some really great ones that are selling really well. And she used YouTube. She goes on YouTube and she looks at some of the bigger brands and sees what videos of theirs are getting the most attention, and can she make something similar to what they're offering. Now, she doesn't copy, like you said. What she does is she looks at, okay, so it looks like this bag is going big, and this other bag is going big, and this other bag is really going big. So maybe I can design a bag that that is larger like these that people might like. So she goes and designs a bag that she would like to carry. That's a larger bag that is quilted, that is in her style. So that's what she does. Or if another way that she did it was she saw little smaller projects, just like we talked about. She saw a quilted, I forget what she said, but one of the videos was a quilted smaller project, like maybe like a hot pad or something. And that video was going big. And she noticed it on another account, that another account had a small project that was similar to something in the kitchen. So she created her own kitchen quilted thing that she could offer her audience. And that went big too. So looking at trends that way can be a more targeted approach. And you'll notice that both of the ideas we just shared and some of the things we shared earlier, they don't take a lot of time. They
Right.
just take intentionally noticing what you're looking at and taking some time to reflect. And then it can guide you to something you know the marketplace is interested in.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very good points. Well, we have covered a lot here, but it's time to wrap up. And um, you mentioned at one point our Patreon channel. So if people want to dive deep, have some opportunities to interact and dive more into this topic of market research, we definitely invite you to find Quilting on the Side on Patreon.
Yes, and we have, just so everyone is aware, we have moved everything to Patreon so that we have a little Buzzsprout website, which is great searching. I was working on some of our background stuff, and it does a great job searching episodes. So if you're interested in certain topics, go to our, you can go to Quilting on the Side, and quiltingonside.com still routes to our little brand. Well, it's not new, but we're using it new. Buzzsprout website that has a great search feature. So you can type in any subject that you want, that you're interested in, and it'll bring up any episode that mentions that subject. And if you notice that you're looking for a subject that we don't have, let us know so we can do an episode on it. We'd love to. But everything else is going to be on Patreon now. We have a free option on Patreon. We have a smaller option, and then we have a $15 option. And the $15, the BFF Side Hustlers, that's where we get to do our live Q&As, where you get to come in and we meet as a community. You can ask your questions and get feedback from both me and Andi and the rest of our community. So you can have a community of entrepreneurs that can help support you in your business.
Yeah, we've seen some really fun growth and helpful collaborations across that group. So definitely join us on Patreon. Lots of options there to find us. And we are just so thrilled that you are here with us for season 5.
That's a wrap on today's conversation. We hope it gave you something real to take back to your business.
And if you liked this episode, please hit subscribe and leave us a review. It helps more quilters find the show and feel a little less alone on their entrepreneurial journey.
And if you want more support, from behind the scenes content to live chats, you'll find more in our Quilting on the Side community on Patreon. And as always, don't forget to do
A little quilting on the side.